What's up, everybody? You see the focus of this video here. I want to take a look back at Funko's SDCC 2017. That means I'm going to focus on the exclusives that they had available. Also focusing on how the retailers handled those exclusives, and just overall what I thought about San Diego Comic-Con and the exclusives from last year. And I'm doing this because we are very close to the reveals, the official reveals of what's going to be available this year for San Diego Comic-Con. Now, especially for those of you that are new to collecting and new to the way that this all works, basically there's going to be over 60 items that will be exclusives. Most of those will get shared with different retailers like Hot Topic, Target, Walmart, and so on. So the figures will be split up across these different retailers. There will be some items that you can only get if you actually go to San Diego Comic-Con, but again, the majority of them will be shared with retailers. And the way that Funko does this, usually they focus on a particular genre or a particular property, and they reveal certain figures that they're going to have available related to that property or genre. And then yeah, they'll do that over the course of a couple of days, or it may even be a couple of weeks. And then right before San Diego Comic-Con starts, that's when we find out for sure where those figures are going to be available. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, definitely make sure that you are following Funko News, because as the information comes out, of course, I am going to make sure I share it all with you to try to keep you all up to date. But again, not so worried about this year. In this particular video, I want to take a look back at how things went last year, and I am considering, of course, my own personal opinions, but also, you know, the opinions that my friends had, and just the general consensus that I got from checking out my comments section last year. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the first wave that Funko revealed last year was the Star Wars wave, and you see here that it was only 4 items. You got to remember though that Funko, they also have Star Wars items when they do the Star Wars celebration, which has become a yearly event. And then of course with other conventions, you know, there's more Star Wars that happens. If there's an anniversary, you know, then they'll do something related to Star Wars. So I'm not surprised that the selection relating to Star Wars was somewhat limited for San Diego Comic-Con last year. But at the same time, you know, if it's only going to be 4 items, I think they need to be really incredible items, and it seems like they just weren't. I mean, I have friends that are Star Wars fans, and they did get some of these figures, but they didn't really seem blown away by them. So that was kind of unfortunate. At least though, I will say that these figures were pretty easy to get for people that were interested in them. As a matter of fact, the Princess Leia and R2-D2 2-pack, I still see that one in GameStop sometimes till this day. So there was definitely good numbers available, you know, for these exclusives here. That's one positive thing at least. Now moving on here, the next wave focused on Scott Pilgrim. Of course, you know, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is that cult classic movie. I'm a big fan of that movie myself. I don't quite understand though why the figures can be so difficult to get. Most of the Scott Pilgrim figures have been Funko Shop items or convention items. And with the case last year, there was only one of these items here that was shared with a retailer, and that was Nega Scott, which was shared with Hot Topic. The rest of these were convention only, and they may have appeared, I think a couple of them did appear on the Funko Shop at some point very briefly. But yeah, overall, these figures were not easy to get, which is kind of disappointing. But luckily for me, I'm not really too worried about collecting these figures. I do have Nega Scott in my collection because, like I said, that's one that was shared, and I did a trade for that one. But yeah, I'm just glad that I'm not too concerned about collecting Scott Pilgrim figures, because they can be pretty difficult to get. Now next up here was the Marvel wave, and when it comes to Marvel, I feel like Funko really needs to swing for the fences, and they struck out last year. They absolutely did, in my opinion. I think these figures were just so disappointing and underwhelming. You see that Gwenpool is represented twice, which is somewhat odd to me because they already had 3 Gwenpool pops prior to this one being revealed. So I think this was just unnecessary, and then they really didn't change much about the figure. As a matter of fact, that was my main problem with the pops that they had here. There was no mold that was completely new. Even with Tony Stark, they had already used that head mold before for Spider-Man Homecoming for one of those figures. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing that it seems like there just wasn't much effort put into these Marvel pops, especially Bucky as Captain America, which is just a horrible pop in my opinion. I'm so not a fan of it. I honestly don't like that costume to begin with, but then it seems like Funko really did not put much effort into it. So yeah, Marvel was very lackluster last year. I can't see that happening again this year. I'd be very surprised if it happens that way again this year, especially considering all the success that Marvel has had with Infinity War and Black Panther, you know, and the TV series and everything. It's just, I hope that this will be a much better year for Marvel when it comes to Funko. Next up was the cartoon wave, and by the way, I'm going by, you know, what the waves represent as opposed to the numbers, although I think I do actually have these in order that they were revealed last year. But yeah, with the cartoon wave, I think they had good character choices here. And the characters, I mean, the designs really do represent the characters well, so this was solid overall. And then the figures were definitely, for the most part, you know, available if people were interested in them. You know, you could find these, except when it comes to the Happy Happy Joy Joy Ren and Stimpy 2-pack. That one was convention only, which I was kind of disheartened by that last year, but then it did become available on the Funko shop very briefly. That's how I was able to secure that. And you know, I had a friend that was kind enough to let me know that it had become available, and I was able to lock that down. So I definitely appreciated that help, and that's why, you know, I stress to people, especially when it comes to conventions, you want to have friends that are collectors. It makes a big difference. You know, it really does help you out. But yeah, overall, like I said, I think these designs were pretty solid. I think some people were a bit aggravated though, because the cat dog pop figure had already just come out, the common one, and then they turned around and did this flock variant, and it wasn't super difficult to get. So I think that did kind of annoy some Nickelodeon fans that, you know, if they had known, of course, they probably would have waited on the flock version. But you know, it is what it is. Funko does a double dip sometimes. Sometimes they triple dip. Sometimes way beyond that. You know, it just happens. It's just one of those things that comes along with collecting. The next wave was the DC wave, and you see that it was a good number of items that they had here. Now, I'm sure people have mixed feelings about this though, because half of the items were actually Batman related, either Batman himself or, you know, something related to Batman. So yeah, I mean, even though it was a good number of items, it's almost like the Batman wave, and then it just happened to be some other items there as well. So yeah, that may rub some people the wrong way, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a business thing. As long as Batman continues to sell well, they're going to keep doing this. Now, one figure that stands out to me for the wrong reason is Ares. I really did not like the design of Ares. I don't think it does justice to the comic version or the movie version. And this is supposed to be the movie version, but I just didn't like the way that he was proportioned. I felt like it should have been a taller figure. Definitely feel like he should have had a weapon with him. You know, his axe would have been nice. So yeah, I just wasn't happy with that design, and it's a figure that I ended up passing on. Some of the other figures, I was cool with them. I did get Aquaman with the mother box. It's not like a mind-blowing figure, but I thought it was cool enough. Then I also got Bruce Wayne. I got Joker as Batman. That was actually one of my favorites, even though, yeah, it was a repaint. Man-Bat was cool. You know, I definitely like seeing Man-Bat be made. And then Interplanetary Batman, which I didn't think I was going to get initially, but once I actually got a better look at it in a YouTube video, I was like, that's not a bad design at all. I like the shininess of the suit and the transparency of the helmet, so I went with that one. You know, I was cool with that. Now, of course, out of all of these, the biggest headache was the Blue Chrome Batman. Very few collectors were able to secure that because it was sold through Toy Tokyo, and they only had it available for certain customers, and I'll talk some more about that later on. But yeah, Blue Chrome Batman was definitely a big headache when it comes down to it. Overall though, I feel like they did justice to DC, no pun intended there. I think they did justice to DC, but this year, if they have a DC wave, which they probably will, I think they should focus less on Batman, give some other characters some love. That would be nice to see. Now with the TV wave, very blasé in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. There were some figures some people were happy about. As a matter of fact, this version of Steve from Stranger Things ended up being a hit. I don't think anybody expected it to go up in value the way that it did eventually. So that's definitely the standout as far as this wave is concerned. But then some of the other figures, it was just, you know, so-so. Mr. Clark from Stranger Things, I think that was cool that they did him, especially him holding the plate. So people that are Stranger Things collectors, especially completionists, I'm sure they were happy to get that figure. T-Dog from The Walking Dead was kind of out of left field. I thought that was an odd choice as a convention exclusive. I don't have a problem with them making T-Dog, but as a convention exclusive, it just felt a little bit odd, and it almost felt like they may have thought this was the only way that figure was going to sell well if they did it as a convention exclusive, which I think is the reasoning behind some of the choices that are made for these exclusives. So again, with the TV wave, I wouldn't call it like a bad wave, but just nothing too mind-blowing really going on with it. Next up was the Warner Brothers wave. This is the only wave I think I can say where I can't really think of anything negative about it. I think they did a phenomenal job here. I think it's some of the best designs out of everything that came out last year. They definitely had characters that people were looking for and looking forward to, and all of these were shared except for one figure. That was Lincoln as Reaper from 100. But other than that, you know, the figures were available if people were really interested in them. So yeah, this wave I think was a big hit. Phenomenal job. I think Okami is definitely a standout out of the figures last year. As a matter of fact, I know for sure that that was some people's favorite figure from last year, and rightfully so. It was a beautiful figure. Great job with it, and you know, it's definitely smart that they did it as a 6-inch pop as well. So yeah, the Warner Brothers wave was amazing last year in my opinion. Next up was the Disney wave. And most of the figures here were shared. That's a good thing. As far as the downside goes, though, it was very confusing what in the world was going on with Mr. Toad. At one point, we thought he might be shared. Then we thought that he might be a Parks exclusive. And then it's like nobody was seeing the figure. It was just really confusing about what was going on with Mr. Toad. And to be honest, to this day, I still don't know exactly what happened with his release. Like, I think some people did manage to get him at the actual show at San Diego Comic-Con, but beyond that, it was just very confusing about what in the world happened with that figure. And then as far as Tigger is concerned, I like the look of Tigger, you know, great job there. But Funko did have, they had started doing this new flocking process. So this flock Tigger, it didn't look that great. Some of them did not look that great, especially on his torso area where you could see the orange beneath the other color. It was just kind of an odd flocking job that they did there. But, you know, I'm sure some, you know, people were happy to get Tigger. But yeah, the flocking definitely could have been better. So again, like I said, with Disney, you really expect them to go all out, and this was okay. It wasn't bad, it was just okay. I will say though, the Negaduck, I actually did pick that one up. I ended up trading it just because I felt like it didn't fit into my collection. But even though that was a repaint, it still looked pretty sharp. I'll give them props on that. And the Jolly Rancher, I'm about to say Jolly Rancher, but the Jolly Roger pop figure, them making that a glow-in-the-dark figure, I was cool with that too, you know. So yeah, I mean, with Disney, I just feel like they got to go bigger with that. They have to have more things that are really outstanding, and this was just okay. The Miscellaneous Wave was pretty random, as the name suggests, so it's kind of tough to judge it overall, but you know, I would say that this was a very solid wave. I think it's cool that the Megazord was available with multiple retailers, and that's because I think it was considered to be a Diamond exclusive, and Diamond is a distributor. So that's why people found this figure in different places. Some people found it in Think Geek, some people found it at GameStop, some people found it at Box Lunch, I think. So yeah, it was different places because of that reason. And then it was also available with multiple online retailers. So yeah, Megazord, I think it's cool that people that really wanted that had different options on where they could find it. I thought the Psycho Shriner looked very cool. That's one that I went for when it went on the Funko shop, but I missed out on it. The Lorax, again, kind of rough with the flock on it, especially around the eyes, but still a cool looking figure overall. I saw this one not that long ago at Barnes & Noble because that's where it got shared at, but the box was really beat up. Like, it was just badly beat up. Now, I'm not going to go through every single figure here, but I definitely got to point out Scareglow being part of this wave, which is one of my favorites from SDCC last year. Really glad that I do have that one in my collection. That's another one that was shared with Barnes & Noble. I also ended up getting the Dorbs ride here of Skeletor on Panther. I think I got that one via a trade. Yeah, it was a trade, and really happy that I ended up getting that one because I also have the He-Man on Battle Cat Dorbs ride as well. I think they look great together. So yeah, this wave is random, as the name suggests, like I said, but pretty awesome altogether. Next up here was the HBO Wave. This was very blasé. I don't think this really blew anybody away. The only one that seemed to be very popular was the Mountain. And yeah, other than that, I think people were just kind of shrugging their shoulders on this and waiting to see what would come up next. So yeah, this really did not blow people away. But for people that were able to get the Mountain and, you know, big Game of Thrones fans, I think that was a nice addition to their collection. And then there were some sort of random figures as well associated with San Diego Comic-Con. Of course, Conan is a fan of Funko, and he gets his exclusives every year. And he actually does a show at San Diego Comic-Con, and you have to be there to get his figures. He did have an online contest as well for people to get a chance to win these figures. But yeah, they can be very difficult to try to get. But if you're a fan of Conan and you're a fan of the characters that are represented, then if you're able to get one into your collection, that is pretty cool. Tinkles with Ghost in a Jar was actually announced separately. I'm not sure why that is, but yeah, they announced her separately away from the other waves. And that was one that was at the top of my list as well to get. And it took a while, but eventually I actually did get this one into my collection, and I was very thankful about that. That was courtesy of the help of a subscriber, so I really appreciated that. And then that Night King figure, the glow-in-the-dark Night King, this was at an event that HBO had at San Diego Comic-Con, but to some people's surprise, it actually went on HBO's website as well. So I'm going to say this year, if there's anything HBO related, you might want to actually check HBO's website for their online store to see if anything actually appears there, because it's happened with other conventions as well, that sometimes HBO related characters actually do sell on their own shop. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, last year, Funko did have a pop-up shop. This was an actual store that they set up. And, you know, of course, collectors could come out there. And there were some people that camped out literally for days to try to get the figures that were going to be available at the pop-up shop. Now, this year, Funko has already said they're not going to have a pop-up shop. I mean, I'm not sure their whole purpose behind not having it. It could be just because, you know, they want to put their resources in other places, which is understandable. I'm sure it was, you know, a lot of work on their part to keep that shop running. I think it ran for like 3 days. So yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of resources there, you know, with their employees and everything. So I understand them not having it again. But I think what was cool about it last year, the main thing is that it brought a lot of excitement, because people knew that these were going to be very tough to get items. And also these figures, because they're so heavily focused on Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera, for a lot of collectors, this brought up a lot of nostalgia. And of course, I think the CEO had a big hand in the figures that were chosen for the pop-up shop, because he really is a big Hanna-Barbera fan. So some of these figures did end up being shared with other retailers like Hot Topic and Box Lunch, you know, which was cool. But for the most part, these were very tough to get. I don't really completely call that a negative, though. But, you know, that's just part of collecting, that sometimes things are going to be difficult to get, but that's part of the hunt. That's part of the fun that comes with collecting. So like I said, I don't really look at that as a negative. I think some people did get aggravated about the pop-up shop not being able to get certain items, especially that Bugs and Hyde 2-pack. I know a lot of people really want to get that one, and that was very tough to try to get a hold of. Super Daffy as well as another one that a lot of people wanted and was very tough to try to get. So yeah, I understand some people's aggravation, but overall I thought the pop-up shop was a cool idea. And you know, it's in a way it's kind of negative that it's not coming back this year, but again, I understand why the company's not being bothered with that. Now, you see here, I got this big question mark, SDCC Exclusives, because I do feel like sometimes retailers may take advantage of San Diego Comic-Con and call something an SDCC exclusive when that's not really the case. Like with the Toys R Us exclusives, they had X-23 and they had a variant of Scott Pilgrim rocking the Plum Tree t-shirt. Those to me did not really feel like true SDCC exclusives. They weren't released at that exact time, and it was just kind of awkward the way that that whole thing was set up. I mean, they were listed on the website as being convention exclusives, but I feel like that may have been a last minute decision to call them that. And by the way, the paint apps on X-23 were pretty horrible, and I still see those in Toys R Us stores, even though Toys R Us is about to close up. I know the last time I went there, I think I still saw an X-23, and again, the paint apps were pretty bad on them. And then Diva with Mecha, this color variant, this actually went up on the website, the game company's website, around the time of San Diego Comic-Con, and I think they had it at the convention as well. It's another one to me that just didn't completely feel like it was truly a SDCC exclusive. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I just wish companies would be clearer, and these retailers would be clearer about what is a true exclusive and what is something that just happens to be releasing around the same time. Now, as far as the retailers are concerned, I do want to address most of the major retailers. This is not every single one, but most of the most of the retailers and how I think they did last year. As far as Hot Topic, I think Hot Topic did a great job. They had a really good selection. Their servers held pretty well. You know, not perfect. I'm sure some people had to kind of back out and try again, but that just happens when servers get slammed like that. But overall, I thought the servers were pretty solid, and they also had several restocks. Like if you kept coming back checking their website, then you may have found again something that you missed out on. Even up until like a couple of weeks ago, I think there were some figures from last year that still got restocked. So yeah, Hot Topic tends to do a pretty good job. Box Lunch, their variety may have not been the best, but their servers seemed to be pretty solid. And the Mountain, which was probably the most popular one that they had, that one did get a restock as well. So I think Box Lunch did a solid job. GameStop as well had a decent selection, really good numbers with their selection. The servers had issues, I think, the first hour or two when the figures became available online, but after that things really smoothed out. So, you know, people that try to get the figures as soon as they go online and then they get upset if they can't get through and they give up, don't do that. You know, I mean, that's going to happen in the first hour or two when figures become available online, but keep checking back, because like I said, with GameStop, things smoothed out a lot after that first hour or two. With the Funko shop, I know some people are definitely going to disagree with me, but I think the way things went last year with San Diego Comic-Con was fair. It was very fair. So you had to be on your toes, because instead of dropping all the figures at one time like they did with Emerald City Comic-Con this year, they basically had figures going up every couple of hours over the course of like 2 to 3 days. And like I said, you really had to be on your toes. But once the figure went live, I felt like it was fair. You know, the chance to get that figure was fair. And I was able to order a couple of items, some for my own collection and then some to help out other collectors, you know. So yeah, like I said, in my opinion, it was very fair the way things went with the Funko shop last year. And it gave people to get the opportunity to, you know, get items that were originally convention only. So I was happy with the Funko shop from last year. As far as Walmart is concerned, they really didn't have like a spectacular selection. I think they only had maybe 3 figures. Aquaman with the mother box got sold early for some reason. Some people actually found it in store early, and then the other figures seemed to arrive kind of late, like not when they were exactly, you know, expected to by collectors. But eventually they did have price drops on the figures, because I think they did have really good numbers on them. So yeah, with Walmart, definitely not worth stressing over too much, because like I said, they get their restocks and then they get their price drops as well on figures. Target, again, very limited. I think Target just had 3 exclusives, and so very limited variety. And then they went up online kind of randomly, and it was unclear whether or not you could actually find their exclusives in store. So yeah, Target definitely could be a lot clearer with things this year, and hopefully they'll have it together a little bit more. Barnes & Noble had a really good selection. I was surprised by some of the pops that Barnes & Noble got. They were limited in numbers though, and I know when you went in store, they definitely limited how much you could buy, which is, you know, keeping it fair for collectors. The servers though, Barnes & Noble servers are, I think, kind of notorious for not being the best. They have a lot of issues, and especially when New York Comic-Con came along, there were a lot of issues there. So Barnes & Noble really needs to step it up with their servers. Toys R Us, their postings were somewhat random online. They had a section that was supposed to be specifically for San Diego Comic-Con, but then everything didn't go up when it was expected to. Also, some figures arrived late to stores. They did get good numbers eventually, but I was annoyed too that they really didn't drop the price on some things. It took them a long time to drop the price on some items, if they bothered to do so at all. Even though these figures were sitting there collecting dust, it still took a long time for them to finally drop the price on some of those items. And I know that's not something they have to do, but it's when you see figures like stacked up, like literally stacked up, and they're not moving, you expect the store to go ahead and bring that price down some. So I just didn't really get their reasoning there. With Toy Tokyo, last year, their exclusives were only available to customers who had previously canceled orders. So and when I say canceled orders, I mean their orders were canceled because basically the company could not fulfill those orders. So hopefully it won't be that way this year. Hopefully what they have will be more readily available to the public. Fingers crossed that things will go a lot better with Toy Tokyo, because that has been a bit of a frustration. So that's pretty much my breakdown for how things went with San Diego Comic-Con last year. Those of you that took part in it, if you were collecting during that time period, let me know what you remember about last year. Your positive experiences, negative experiences, whatever it may be. Did you get the figures that you really wanted to get? What may you have missed out on? Just anything that happened relating to last year. Definitely let me know what you thought about it. And also, let me know what are your hopes for this year's San Diego Comic-Con. What figures do you hope to see? Of course, I've been sharing the rumors and Funko news. Which ones do you hope pan out? Where do you hope those figures end up? Which retailers are you pulling for? So yeah, just let me know your thoughts about San Diego Comic-Con and Funko's exclusives in general. I think there's going to be a pretty interesting comment section. I look forward to that. And thank you all for watching. Definitely drop a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, and I will talk to you all again real soon.